Well, hello and welcome. It is a big day for India, and of course, it's a great morning in the country. Everyone is waiting with bated breath to what could happen when it comes to the Chandrayaan's landing in the evening. And of course, that is the discussion point everywhere, from cafes to offices as well as to tea shops everywhere across the country. There's only one thing that people want to know, and of course we are going to give you minute-to-minute coverage on it, and also a little bit of history about how this great mission has come to this level. And of course, when it comes to ISRO, there is nothing more than the kind of trouble they have in fact taken when it came to ensure that they would go ahead and carry on with some of the daring mission at a shoestring budget. And when we're talking about the Chandrayaan, well, when it compares to other world projects, it looks like ISRO might just be able to tell you that space exploration can be done effectively on an effective budget as well. It's more of science and less of glamour is what ISRO believes in, and of course that is the manner in which they have been carrying on with it. And interestingly enough, we have seen all the newspapers in fact in the morning going ahead and covering with this particular aspect. Now in Tribune, they have in fact taken up something interesting on their graphics as well. They're talking about how at 5:47 there will be the instruction given to this lander module, asking it to go ahead and carry on with the landing maneuvers. And what they call it is the 17 minutes of terror. Why is it called that? Because that takes the time from 5:47 p.m. to almost 6:04 p.m. for the lander module, with the kind of instructions and its onboard computing to go ahead and ensure that it identifies the right spot for the landing to take place. So this is how it is scheduled to be. At around 5:47, the lander begins descent for touchdown. Now 30 kilometers altitude, 1.68 kilometer per second is what we understand. In powering the brake phase 4 thruster engines retrofire to reduce the velocity, lander is placed horizontally. That is to say, this module in fact is going around the moon at a particular orbit, and as it nears the place where it wants to land and after the computing is carried out, well, this is at the South Pole that we are looking at. It is said that the firing of it takes place to stabilize the lander in a manner, makes it horizontal so that it can land onto the surface of the moon, and it begins the descent simultaneously. Now at around 350 meters per second, that is around 6.8 kilometers altitude, in fine braking phase 2, engines shut. After to give reverse thrust for slower descent, landing gets into a diagonal position is what they say. So we find that the change in with regard to the lander takes place, and as it fires its engine, it tends to in fact ensure that it is able to slowly navigate itself in such a way that it's diagonal in position, and then at around 800 meters altitude, that is 800 meters from the surface of the moon, that altitude, in terminal descent phase of 2 engines bring velocity to a knot. That is to say that it no longer tends to go onto that orbit, and it says that the lander begins descent in a vertical position. Now 6:04 p.m. all goes well, and I've been saying from the time it has been launched, I keep my fingers crossed as well, lander makes the soft landing on moon's surface. Now that is the moment that we are all waiting to have to ensure that India's presence is kept on the moon, making it probably the 4th nation to be able to send a probe or a lander onto the moon. We have already sent our Chandrayaan probes before, but this making sure that a rover lands and a lander in fact ensures that the kind of complexities it's involved, it lands onto the surface of the moon. So that is what we are probably looking at. But however, plan B is also in place. Mind you, this is happening just a few days from the crashing of the Russia's Lunar 25 probe. So there is a caution level that is also there when it comes to the lander as such. And what they are saying is that there is a plan B as well. In case of a hiccup, landing will be delayed by 4 days to August 27th. Now the site will be almost 400 kilometers from the primary landing spot. So there is a plan B that has also been put in place by ISRO, that if they think it's not going to happen. Of course, they will be delaying the landing in case they are not able to in fact go ahead with that particular aspect of trying to get the parameters right. But that is again a plan B. We are not going to look at plan B right now. We are going to say that ISRO is going to land that lander onto the surface of the moon, making the country proud, and our scientists in fact being able to push a lot of science when it comes to the moon as such. Now, what we understand is that this is particularly going to happen at the South Pole. That is where Chandrayaan-3 will be attempting the soft landing on the lunar surface. India is probably at the cusp of scripting history with the country's third lunar probe, Chandrayaan-3, gearing up for a final phase of its 40-day space odyssey that is set to come to an end on Wednesday when the Vikram lander with Pragyan rover in its belly starts its descent to the moon. This is how the Tribune has in fact described it, and let me in fact show you some of the graphics that they try to in fact show the kind of descent that we are looking at. So when we are looking at this particular aspect of it, we can see how that this particular graphic in fact talks about all the phases that we are going to see from that period of 5:47 to 6:04 p.m. So this is how they have explained it. They have shown how the rover is at present, and then how things in fact move in that particular direction, and then the landing that is going to be taking place. So shooting for the moon today, India's big ambition being unveiled when it comes to the moon. And you can see how this interesting graphics in fact shows how this possibility is going to be there. And of course, we all are going to keep our fingers crossed for that 17 minutes. A little bit of superstition though, but a lot of science at the same time. Meanwhile, I'm also looking at the Indian Express, which talks about something interesting as well. They are also speaking about how the Chandrayaan is slated for its descent from 5:47 p.m. to 6:04. It is a lot of energy and excitement at the place that we are looking at. Meanwhile, the moon mission on schedule, smooth sailing continues, says the space agency. Now, this is what the ISRO has been in fact trying to say when it comes to the kind of landing that we are looking at. And let us in fact take a look at this. A wave of anticipation has swept the country on the lander module of Chandrayaan-3, prepared to take a soft landing on the surface of the moon. Well, ISRO's date with the moon is in fact put out, and there is a lot of social media buzz as well on this aspect. So what we are probably looking at is this, that the ISRO in a social media post Tuesday said that Mission Operations Complex, or what they call as the MOX, has been buzzing with energy and excitement. The mission is on schedule. Now, this is what the entire excitement is there at the complex where ISRO is from its ground station trying to have communications with the Chandrayaan-3 lander there. And the Chandrayaan-3 lander is scheduled to make touchdown at 18:04 hours. ISRO's Telemetry Tracking and Command Center in Bengaluru will issue command at 17:47. That is the ground station from where the commands are going to go from. From Bengaluru, you will see the commands being given to the ISRO station. And from there, you will see that those commands are in fact moved to the rover, and as well as to the lander, and from then onwards you would see the kind of command that we are looking at. So from that velocity, about 6,000 kilometers are in orbit, the spacecraft will have to slow down to near zero as it makes a touchdown. It's designed to land safely even at speeds of 10 kilometers an hour. That is the kind of science that we are looking at when it comes to the moon. Now, the descent will be completely autonomous, artificial intelligence and computer logic driven, with the mission control at ISRO keeping a close watch. The final approach will be a heady cocktail of anxiety, nervousness and anticipation. This is the drama that is being expected at that at ISRO, which is the telemetry center from where we are going to see the instructions to be given to Chandrayaan as such. So the final approach will be a heady cocktail of anxiety, nervousness and anticipation. Well, we have my colleague Pankaj, in fact, joining us with us right now. Pankaj, I was just going through the Hindustan Times, and I was actually interesting to see the kind of drama they are, in fact, trying to portray. When I say the drama, of course, it is actually a script for a film as well. If I'm quite taken up by that particular line over there, and that is what we are trying to, expect also during the evening. That is ISRO's telemetry tracking and command center from where in Bengaluru, from where the instructions will be given to the lander. So they have beautifully, in fact, put those moments now itself. They said that the final approach will be heady cocktail of anxiety, nervousness, and anticipation. It was in these last moments that Chandrayaan-2 developed problems and fell on the moon's surface. So 4 missions, including Lunar 25 Russia 2 days ago, have met with similar fate in the last 4 years. But ISRO has added several layers of safeguard to ensure an incident like previous one does not recur. So they are prepared. They have a plan B as well. And of course, nail-biting times when it comes to looking at possibility of that landing.
Well, yes, absolutely, Varghese. Good morning to you and good morning to our viewers. So rather a wet Wednesday here in the capital, New Delhi, but obviously anticipation and anxiety all at a feverish pitch as Chandrayaan-3 plans and is headed towards its soft landing on the moon. Varghese, before we start with the technicalities here, obviously every newspaper here has the headlines based on Chandrayaan. We have Hindustan Times saying landing today. We have Nav Bharat Times saying आज टिकाए रहें नजरें चांद पर. And obviously, the Times of India also says Vikram all set for soft landing as India reaches for the moon today. Pragyan on brink of history. This, I believe, from my side, is it's 10 on 10 as far as the headlines for the Times of India goes. And needless to say, all the other publications too have given a priority to the much anticipated moon landing of Chandrayaan-3. And why not? Because it is something that is worth noting. It's not just historic, but also a lot of sentiments are attached to it. A lot of emotions are attached to it. And ISRO, from its humble beginnings from the church, from a church, back in the 60s to now to the edge of the moon, to the heights of the space. This is something which we have seen unfolding in front of our eyes. Unbelievable to many. Certain developed countries still, trying to figure how is it possible. The other day I was watching, I guess it was a meme or something, which said that the movie Interstellar was made at a costlier budget than what this whole moon mission is all about. So this is also something that India has managed. A lot of things are happening today, Varghese. If I may, take our viewers through the itinerary, what will happen. 23rd of August, obviously, going down in the history books, definitely. And this evening, the schools in Noida region, which is the national capital region of Delhi, the schools have been instructed to beam this moon landing live. And the students and teachers alike have been asked to participate, which is a very good gesture. I remember there were times when, a comet like Hale-Bopp or some celestial phenomena would happen, and there back in the day the schools used to close for that, and there was anticipation kids won't go to school. But this is a very unique approach. Even if it's beyond the school hours, these students have been asked in the government-run schools and private schools in Uttar Pradesh, in Noida, that the students should come and be part of this historic landing. This inculcates a sense of curiosity. So that is one aspect. Curiosity is the key. Curiosity is the word which has taken India to this, a position where we are. Chandrayaan-3 sending pictures like these, which are showing on our screen, so close to the moon. This is one thing. Secondly, Prime Minister Modi is in Johannesburg, in the southern hemisphere, in totally different time zone. He would also be watching it with anxious, breaths as the Chandrayaan-3 lands on the moon. And that particular moment also, it is expected he might, just address the ISRO community, the scientist community from there. So that is one aspect that is also we are looking at. And needless to say, Varghese, the run up to this, launch and then anticipated separation, which happened successfully. of the lander from the rover, and now this just hours away from the soft landing on the dark side of the moon, obviously in search of water. That is one key aspect. And also, Varghese, if I may just take the liberty of time here, that we have seen an increased approach towards the global community into this extraterrestrial, celestial, approaches, be it the mission to Mars, be it the moon missions. We saw Russia's Lunar 25 also making a headway towards moon. We have other smaller countries also taking giant leaps into the outer space with the help of developing or developed nations like India, for that matter, which is helping other countries place its satellite in the outer space area. So all these things obviously assume a lot of significance. And when this, I won't call it a space race. I will rather call it a tech innovative approach, which is placing countries adjacent to each other and also vying for that top developed position, which not just helps them to understand the nature better, but also predict at times the weather patterns, the availability of water, which helps, in turn in farming, also educates the kids. So that's why I would say it's very crucial that India not just celebrates, but also goes to the town if all goes well with the landing of Chandrayaan 3.
Well, of course, you have said there's a lot of excitement when it comes to the entire thing about Chandrayaan. But let us also, in fact, listen into what K. Sivan had to say on this. He had spoken about this mission, and he had helmed the last Chandrayaan 2 mission, and that had something to do with the manner in which, we saw how he was heartbroken, in fact, when the mission had failed. But then he is confident about this, and he's given a statement on it. Let's, in fact, take a look at that.
So definitely that because last time we could not achieve, because we till this phase we did very well last time also, but the landing portion only we could not achieve properly. So definitely that's what this time it's a very, very, very anxious moment. Everybody is working, looking it very anxiously for this event to happen. And I am sure that this time it will be a grand success. Not only now, that is, we have been telling from the beginning, it is a landing is a very, very complex process. So even now also we are telling that the landing is a complex process. So, but nothing to do with the Russians' lander failure. But we have our own system, and we will be establishing a soft landing without any problem with our system. So, but it is a complex process.
Well, that is, in fact, we had K. Sivan, in fact, coming in and speaking about it, Pankaj, that it is a complex kind of a system that we are looking at. And, I have a headline also from the Hindustan Times that says that we even prepared backup plans for our backups, says ISRO chief. So that shows the level of anxiety that is there, and at the same time, excitement that is there. And at the same time, they are trying to ensure that it is, kind of failure proof, and they are able to get this mission on board. But then there are more reactions that are coming in. Let's listen into what some of those reactions from scientists as well as the people have on Chandrayaan.
We're about to land on 23rd of August. It's a very momentous occasion for India, and also a very big milestone in terms of space exploration. So the spacecraft is in the lunar orbit, and we hear from ISRO that is being lowered down to the altitude from which it will be going to be landing. So the deboosting operations have been successful so far, and we look forward to the final operations of landing on 23rd evening. Today, the soft landing of Lunar 25, the Russian mission, it took a different route to Moon, and we heard from the Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, that it ventured into the lunar orbit. But what we heard after that was that they lost contact with the spacecraft. and they are reporting that probably the spacecraft has crash landed on the moon.
Chandrayaan 2, compared to that, is almost so many things have been done. In fact, I won't be able to explain every detail which Chairman ISRO himself has explained. About 80% changes are there. Weight itself is higher because they included quite a few things. Then they included redundancy in the engine, in the orbiter himself, so that one engine, suppose something happens, etc. Then what of the some of the anomalies which took, only a couple of anomalies were there, but still they did not only just say, just solve it and go away. There are many other things you can always do better. It's always there in your mind, but they could not incorporate everything. So they incorporated many of those things into the Chandrayaan 3.
23 अगस्त न केवल इसरो के लिए बट पूरे हमारे देश के लिए बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण दिन है और होगा, क्योंकि इस दिन हमारा जो चंद्रयान 3 मिशन है वो अपने जो सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग मिशन उसका नाम दिया गया है, तो उसकी फाइनल जो अंतिम क्षणों में की ओर जा रहा है और लगभग शाम को 5:47 पे वो जो सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग का हम प्रयास करेंगे 30 किलोमीटर की हाइट से, 30 किलोमीटर की ऊंचाई से, और नीचे की ओर जाएंगे और मून की सतह पर सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग सफलतापूर्वक और सुरक्षापूर्वक कर पाएंगे। ऐसी हमारा पूरा विश्वास है, संपूर्ण हमको आशा है।
Yeah, if you compare Chandrayaan 3 versus Chandrayaan 2, Chandrayaan 2 is a follow-on for Chandrayaan 1, a logical extension from instead of remote sensing or the impactor to have a remote orbiter with for remote sensing and lander and rover for the soft landing of the mission is concerned. And towards that, I think reasonably well, the planning point of view up till getting orbit point of view, it's reasonably well followed as it was done Chandrayaan 1. But the lander point of view, yes, I think lander also, we have how it should go and land on the designated place. Like that, things were put together. But now looking back, the landing site location itself, 500 meter or 500 meter. Now I'm looking back after the Chandrayaan 2 data, looks not adequate. So a wider area needs to be identified. I think that's how Chandrayaan 3 is concerned. A wider area of 4.5 kilometer by 2.5 kilometer, wider area is there. In that, anywhere priority is safely land on the place. I think that is a priority also given like that. And similarly, legs also have been strengthened such that even if the impact velocity is more, you can load. And again, comparing the Chandrayaan 2, the required fuel also have been enhanced there.
Well, those are in fact ISRO's former ISRO scientists being excited about it, and also talking about kind of modification they have done to ensure that it does not happen what we tend to fear what happened to Chandrayaan 2. But I'm not going to be a person who's going to speak on the negativities of it. I'm just excited that we are there and we will be landing that rover on the moon and become one of the forefront spacefaring nations that are into it. Well, I just speak with my colleague as well, Pankaj. Pankaj, NASA as well as the European space agencies are also actually helping us. There is an interesting clip when it comes to the Hindustan Times. They've said that while Indians are rooting for the success of Chandrayaan 2, two international space agencies will be providing support to the Indian space body for uninterrupted communications between the ground stations and the lander module. US's NASA and European Space Agency ESA have earmarked stations that will provide tracking support to Chandrayaan 3. Now, we all know that when it came to the Chandrayaan as such, Pankaj, when the first mission was there, when water was in fact detected on the lunar surface, there was a NASA instrument also on that orbiter. So there have been collaborations, and now it looks like ISRO is one of those space agencies that the ESA as well as NASA wants to collaborate with. And, there are other space agencies also who are looking for collaborations with us, Roscosmos, of course, being one of them, trying to have the kind of learning that each space agencies can give to each other, especially when it comes to technology. And also, there was one interesting clip that was in fact going yesterday. That is what's with Elon Musk, and how one person was asking Elon Musk as to how effective they have been when it came to launching space programs like ISRO did. And then he was saying that, you need to bring it much more below than what is at that cost as well. So ISROs is still costly is what Elon Musk is saying, but if you need to have a spacefaring kind of a population on Earth, you need to bring those costs down. But anyway, it looks like ISRO is on that world map, because Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, and we have moved away from trying to be that domestic space agency that tend to in fact only put out satellites for various reasons, and we have moved beyond that. We are moving into an interplanetary exploration kind of a space agency. And interestingly enough, some of those instruments that have been used when it comes to Chandrayaan or when it was Mangalyaan itself, those instruments were actually meant for perfect science. So people were interested about how you manage your experimentation, how you use your instruments and the data that you collected. Because one big question that was asked by some of those senators is that how did India try to do it in a shoestring budget, a lot of science and very little of the kind of gadgetry that they were looking at, but they did get that data out in many respects as well. So how did India manage to do that, and their space agency was not doing it, probably hinting that NASA needs to cut down on its humongous budgets that it takes for its space exploration as well. But again, collaboration seems to be the way, because India has been able to put itself on that map of spacefaring nations.
Well, indeed, Varghese. See, I mean, as far as India or ISRO is concerned, its USP lies in the fact that it has managed, these missions, be it the Mars mission, be it the Chandrayaan missions, at a very limited budget. But that doesn't mean that there are budgetary constraints. That simply means that India's technical know-how has reached a point where it can and it is in a position to experiment and successfully implement its outer space plans, celestial plans. Now, how it happens? Obviously, we don't see Chandrayaans being launched or Gaganyans being launched every year. It happens through successive and very continuous R&D, and also, which is very critical, is helping and actually becoming the launch pad for several other small nations to send their satellites into the space. This key aspect is generally not done by other countries. One, because of the strategic reasons, and secondly, because of the technical know-how, the technical capabilities. But the PSLVs, the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicles that we use generally to for the liftoff and sending the satellites into the space, countries, smaller countries like Singapore, for that matter, several African countries, a few European countries too, we have seen time and again, and this happens around the year. I would say, if you take a closer look, you would see the average launches that ISRO does, if not for India, for others, is more than what a NASA does, is more than what a Roscosmos does. So that technical know-how is something that India keeps at it. India, is constantly in touch with this, and as far as the research and development is concerned, that is the top priority. Aeronautics is something that is regarded utmost, I would say, attention. And as far as the resource allocation is also concerned, we have seen no, hinges in that. Talking about the communication part, you are right, Varghese, when we talk about several other, agencies helping ISRO. One critical center, which is ISRO's telemetry tracking and command center, ISTRAC is what they call it. It's in Bangalore. Now, why is this center important? Because this is the place. It's not the launching station in Sriharikota from where Chandrayaan had taken off, but it is actually the command center, ISTRAC, which will be giving the signal for the spacecraft to begin the descent at 17:47 hours, which is 5:47 p.m. this evening. And you know what? Our viewers would be surprised, as I was. As of now, as we speak, Chandrayaan's lander is traveling at a speed of 6,000 kilometers per hour. 6,000 kilometers per hour is what the speed is as of now. From 5:47 to 6:04 p.m., it has to decelerate and come down to roughly 10 kilometers per hour. That's when the landing will happen. And this is a zone which is very critical. Chandrayaan 2, at this point of time, had not managed to land there safely. Yet, the commendable work done still bearing fruits. And as we know that the connection has been done. So 5:47, the landing will start with the deceleration. 6:04 is the expected landing. Mission complex building in ISRO is buzzing with energy and excitement. That's what morning newspapers have for you. Varghese.
Well, I've just, before we in fact move on to the rest of the day's stories, I was just looking at how the Hindu has in fact put out a huge broadsheet of graphics. In fact, they've called it the 19 minutes of suspense, while some of them have called it as the 17 minutes of suspense. So in that you can see how they try to portray the landing that is there, and then finally at the end they show how after the landing you have the Pragyan rover rolling out. And interestingly enough, at the end they just say one of the risks that have to be looked into, and also a perfect timing that they require there. What they say over there is that because the lander and the rover are charged by solar panels, the time at which they land should coincide with the sunrise at the location on the moon. So it's not about just trying to land over here, Pankaj. It's also about coinciding with the sunrise on the moon, especially on that location. So that is the kind of the management and the kind of cohesion, as well as the manner in which they have to in fact ensure that all the factors are put together, the coordination required to ensure that this is the manner in which they are able to get the lander rightly at that spot where the sun rises and the solar panels are able to charge. So a lot of coordination to be carried out with this, but again a full broadsheet kind of graphics that has been put in place. Those who are interested, I would be saving this in fact for sure, because this is going to be quite historic. So I would like to save this graphics from the Hindu on for my personal use as well.